Hello students, I hope I'm audible and visible to all of you. If I am, type A in the chat box. सही है. तो आज हम लोग एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट एरिया में एंटर कर रहे हैं विच इज परेटो ऑप्टिमैलिटी. ये वेलफेयर इकोनॉमिक्स का एब्सोल्यूट फाउंडेशन वाला एरिया है. तो फर्स्ट वील टॉक अबाउट परेटो ऑप्टिमैलिटी. वील आल्सो टॉक अबाउट हाउ कैल्डर एंड हिक्स बेसिकली सेड दैट परेटो ऑप्टिमैलिटी के साथ में कुछ कंडीशंस आर इंपॉर्टेंट इन ऑर्डर टू वेरीफाई ट्रांसफर फ्रॉम अ स्टेट ए टू बी. And then we also see the double Skidovsky criterion. उसके बारे में भी थोड़ा सा देखेंगे. And then we'll go into wealth maximization. Okay. So key points to remember under this topic is you need to understand what is Pareto optimality first. Pareto optimality is an allocation where no individual can be made better off without making someone else worse off. It was postulated first by Wilfred Pareto, and it's known as one of the most basic and the most popular contributions by an economist in welfare economics. Okay, so it is basically representing a state where maximum efficiency is achieved, where resources are allocated in a way that it's impossible to improve an agent's utility without hurting the other. Okay, so let's understand the different types of Pareto efficiencies. Efficiency in exchange. Efficiency in exchange is when the MRS of individuals is the same. Suppose there are two individuals in an economy, so MRS A is equal to MRS B. Efficiency in production will mean that for the two agents, there is MRTS for A being equated to MRTS for B, right? And efficiency in output mix. Efficiency in output mix is basically when the MRS in this economy is equal to the MRTS. Okay. Now, efficiency in exchange is basically the optimal distribution of goods amongst the consumers. Efficiency in production, which is equating the two MRTS, is optimum allocation of resources between firms. And the efficiency in output mix, this is called efficiency in output mix. It is the right combination of goods produced and consumed. Okay, so that's what it is. So that is what is written here. Now, this I have already said. For if MRS A and MRS B are the same, it means that no further mutually beneficial trades are possible. That is why this is the efficiency there. And when MRTS A is equal to MRTS B, it means that inputs allocated in such a way that shifting doesn't increase output. Shifting from firm A to firm B doesn't increase output. All right. Let's take a look at the PYQs associated with it. It's come in 2015 UGC NET Economics. So please take a look at June 2015 UGC NET Economics. General Pareto optimality will exist if MRT is equal to MRS, marginal rate of transformation, marginal rate of technical substitution is equal to marginal rate of substitution for B. Okay, that is the general optimality condition. June 2015, another question from efficiency is Pareto optimality in production is gained in which of the following conditions? It is equating the MRTS across the two firms. Okay. These are direct concepts that have come in the UGC NET paper. Right. Right. There are more important aspects when it comes to Pareto optimality. So, yeah. So basically, if you take a look, Pareto optimality, the locus of Pareto optimal combinations is given by Pareto frontier. Okay, like the Edgeworth box is a way in which I will be able to get bundles within a particular economy for two individuals, origin O1 and O2. The point of the locus of all Pareto optimal allocations is called the contract curve when it comes to exchange, right? Connection to perfect competition, Pareto efficiency will only hold if it is a perfectly competitive market. And what we consider here in terms of the utility is ordinal utility and not cardinal utility, right? So if you remember these, it's nice to go ahead and take a look at a particular problem which uses all these concepts. It was asked in November 2017 of the UGC NET paper. Which of the following statement about Pareto optimum are correct? It changes with changes in the distribution of income. That's correct. At the Pareto optimum, MRS is equal to MRT. Yes. It is unique. It is obtained under perfect competition. So basically A, B, and D are correct. Right? So you get direct questions like these. That's why it's important to give all this as a revision. Right? It'll be a good idea just to showcase you what is Pareto frontier very quickly. So once we draw the PPF for a particular economy, supposing this is the point of production for good A and good B, for firm A and firm B. So we get a box like this. This is basically the Edgeworth box for this economy with this much amount is produced of good A and good B. So I get all the points that are efficient in consumption. So efficiency in exchange is the equation of all the MRS between the two individuals. Now, basis this, I get a utility of each individual. Now, the utility of each individual can be mapped in a separate diagram where I have utility of person A in the horizontal axis and utility of person B in the vertical axis. And I can get a utility possibility curve or utility possibility frontier, also called the Pareto frontier. Okay. This is the different level of utilities on every point. Like this point is UB at this level and UA at a very low level, right? So utility of B at a very high level, utility of A at a very low level, somewhere here. And this is a point where utility of B is at a low level and utility of A is at a very high level. So that's a point somewhere here. Please understand all the points on the utility possibility frontier is taken from all these Pareto optimal allocations, Pareto optimal combinations, right? So that is the utility possibility frontier. Now, for each different amount of production, supposing this is K, L, M, N, for different amount of production in a particular economy, I'll get different Edgeworth boxes, right? I'll get different Edgeworth boxes, and hence I'll get different utility possibility frontiers, right? I'll get different Edgeworth boxes and different utility possibility curves, okay? And all the different utility possibility curves that I take into account, I can have a curve which will put efficiency on both production and consumption. So UPF or UPC or Pareto frontier, whatever it is called, all these are absolutely synonyms. Okay, you can call it anything. So this is only for efficiency in exchange. If I were to include the efficiency in production and as well as efficiency in exchange, I would get something called the grand utility possibility frontier. Okay, so it is collectively optimized over both consumption and production, and I get something like this. It's neither convex nor concave. It's optimized over production and consumption, and it's called grand utility possibility frontier, GUPF. Okay, grand utility possibility frontier, and this is asked directly in a PYQ in UGC NET as well. So if you take a look at December 2013, let's open that up. Yeah, this is the question. December 2013, UGC NET. The locus of Pareto optimality in production and consumption is given by. It's given by the grand utility possibility frontier or curve. Okay. So consumers maximize utility given budgets is utility possibility curve. Firms maximize output is production possibility frontier. General equilibrium is a Walrasian equilibrium. Okay. Pareto optimality is achieved when MRS is the same, MRT is the same, and MRS is equal to MRT. Few more questions related to the PYQs of UGC NET. You need to understand what is Pareto improvement. Pareto improvement is a change that makes at least one individual better off without making anyone else worse off. Okay. A state is called Pareto optimal if no Pareto improvements are possible. Okay. So let's take a look at a June 2013 PYQ. June 2013, Pareto optimum implies a resource allocation for which Pareto improvement is not possible. And answer is D. See, it's a direct question. Okay. And as I have already said, what are the requirements or assumptions for Pareto optimality? To achieve full Pareto optimality in reality, there are a few conditions that should hold. Number one, I've already said perfect competition in all markets. Number two, there should be no externalities. Number three, no public good. Number four, full information in all the markets and complete markets. Rational and utility maximizing agents. The agents are rational and utility maximizing. I'm taking into account only ordinal utility and not cardinal. Okay. So once all of this is satisfied, then only do I have Pareto optimality. Right? Now, there is a PYQ, December 2018. Just open that. December 2018 UGC NET PYQ. Which one of the statements about Pareto optimality is incorrect? Consumers maximize their satisfaction. Correct. There's perfect competition in the factor and commodity market. Consumers have ordinal utility function. So this is incorrect. All the factors are used in production of all the commodities. So C is incorrect, and hence please mark C as the answer. All right. Another PYQ is December 2013 again. December 2013, the condition of Pareto optimality holds correct under perfect competition, only and only perfect competition. Okay. Right. Is Pareto optimum unique? Pareto optimum is not unique. Multiple Pareto efficient allocations may exist depending on initial endowments. We just saw the contract curve. It's multiple Pareto efficient allocations. And even when I take a look at the GUPF, each and every point of the GUPF is an efficient allocation. Okay. So depending on initial endowments, income, distribution, and the budget constraint, Pareto optimum allocation is not unique. This was again asked in November 2017 examination of UGC NET. where I told you that uniqueness is not there. It is not unique. Next, let's go into compensation criteria. So we'll talk about the different criterions here. Okay, so first is the Kaldor-Hicks compensation principle. Then we'll go into the Skitowski paradox, Hicks criterion, Bertson, Samuel social welfare function, Arrow's impossibility theorem. Again, we will be revisiting. So we'll see all of that here. So what is firstly the motivation for this compensation criteria in the first place? So Pareto optimality is very strict as a criterion. Okay, there is no distribution allowed unless no one is worse off, right? So in real policy making, many decisions have to take into account inequalities. Many decisions have to benefit the poor, take from the rich, benefit the poor. So inequality is not taken into account in Pareto optimality, but in real policy making, you have to give the benefit to some at the expense of others. Hence, economists develop less strict criterias to evaluate changes and to think about policy making, right? So the first one that we'll talk about is the Kaldor-Hicks compensation principle. A change from state B to state A is justified under the Kaldor-Hicks compensation principle if people who gain from the change can compensate the losers and still be better off. So the gainers are gaining more than the loser is losing. So the extra gain that the gainer is gaining will obviously make the entire society better off than what it was earlier. Okay, this Kaldor-Hicks compensation scheme is important because the compensation does not have to actually occur. The possibility is enough. Okay, let's take a look at UGC NET PYQ based on this. It's December 2019. December 2019. The compensation criterion, which says that state A is socially preferable to state B if those who gain from the change can compensate the losers and yet end up with surplus welfare gain, is attributed to Kaldor. Okay, it's attributed to Kaldor. The compensation criterion described in the question is known as the Kaldor-Hicks compensation criterion, attributed to Nicholas Kaldor. It is a foundational concept in welfare economics for evaluating potential social improvements without requiring actual compensation. So it's a direct question that has come from the Kaldor criterion. Now let's talk about the Hicksian criterion. It's the opposite of Kaldor. Okay, a change from state A to B is not desirable. A change from state A to B is not desirable if those who lose in the change, would be willing to avoid it. So there in Kaldor criterion, we were talking about the gainer compensating the loser. In the Hicks criterion, it is the losers who would actually lose would bribe the gainers, to not go into the new state. So a change from state A to state B is not desirable if those who lose in the change would be willing to avoid it and their payment is greater than the gainer's gain. And their payment, they are willing to pay a bribe, their payment is greater than the gainer's gain. Thus, Hicks rejected changes unless losers couldn't bribe gainers to stop it. Okay, so that's the Hicks criterion. Now, Skitowski basically also called the double criterion, basically justified both A over B and B over A. So a change from A over B, that is the Hicks criterion, or a change from B over A, that's the Kaldor criterion, it can justify both. Okay, and hence we get a circularity which can move in either direction, leading to a paradox. Okay, so a change from B to A is desirable if A passes Kaldor, so a movement from B to A is desirable if A passes Kaldor. That is, the gainer is gaining a higher amount than the loser is losing, and the gainer is willing to compensate the loser for it. And B fails Hicks. That is, the losers losing more than the gainers, basically. Okay, this is called the Skitowski double criterion. Okay, let's take a look at a UGC NET PYQ that's based on the different criterions. So it's UGC NET PYQ June 2014. Let's go and take a look at that. Okay, June 2014. A double Kaldor-Hicks test is Skitowski. Compensation principle is Kaldor-Hicks. Okay. Social welfare function is Bergson. C1, and D is Arrow's impossibility theorem. A3, B4, C1 and D2. Okay. So you can see it's a direct question from this place. So I've also explained the Skitowski paradox. Now let's go into the Bergson social welfare function. Bergson social welfare function. So the social welfare function is a utility-based method to rank social states. Okay, it's a utility-based method to rank social states. It's developed by Bergson. Later, it was formalized by Samuelson. Okay, it assigns a numerical index. Basically, what does it do? It assigns a numerical index of welfare to each possible allocation of a state. Okay, it's not just efficiency, it introduces value judgments. Basically, that means that it deals with equity. Okay. Specification would be something like this, that the social welfare function is a function of U1, U2, ... n individuals up to UN, where these UIs are basically individual utilities. It shows how the society values different individuals' utilities and allows interpersonal utility comparison, unlike what we saw in the Pareto optimality condition. Okay, so there are multiple possibilities when it comes to the social welfare function. One is a complete utilitarian social welfare function, that is maximizing the total utility. Second is a social welfare function as given by Rawlsian. It maximizes welfare of the people who are worst off. And third social welfare function is that of a dictator, so dictatorship. So these are a few examples of the different social welfare functions that can be there. It can be a utilitarian social welfare function or a Rawlsian or a dictatorship kind of a social welfare function. Let's take a look at a question on social welfare functions. It's come in June 2014 itself. Hold on. Let me open it up. Here, social welfare function is attributable to A. Bergson, right? These are basically a few leads in which you can get these. Okay. Arrow's impossibility theorem we have already done. No social choice rule can convert individual preferences into a complete social ordering under plausible conditions. Okay, so Arrow's impossibility theorem, he imposed a few conditions. Okay, the conditions that Arrow imposed was, number one, unrestricted domain, that is, all individual orderings are allowed. Okay, non-dictatorship model. Thirdly, assumption of Pareto efficiency. Number four, independence of irrelevant alternatives. And number five, assuming transitivity. So Arrow basically proved that it's impossible to satisfy all five simultaneously. If there are greater than three people and greater than equal to three choices, it's impossible to satisfy all these assumptions. The theorem highlights basically the limits of aggregating individual preferences into a society-wide welfare function. Okay, cannot satisfy all of them together. So it's postulated by Kenneth J. Arrow. So if I were to compare Pareto versus Kaldor-Hicks versus SWF, it's an important comparison table to be seen here. So feature interpersonal comparisons. Pareto not there, Kaldor-Hicks not there, SWF is there. Compensation not allowed, hypothetical, yes, compensation is allowed, not needed. Value judgments are there in SWF. Practical policy making, it's more practical than Pareto and this is good for policy making. Okay. So there are a few limitations to these compensation tests that we spoke about. So no actual compensation is required. Distribution is ignored. Measurement of utility is done in monetary terms, and it may reverse the rankings like we saw in Skitowski paradox. So it's important to know which economist is associated with which principle or term. So SWF by Bergson came in UGC NET in June 2014. Compensation principle by Kaldor, December 2019, June 2014. Double criterion and impossibility theorem in these 2 years of June 2014. It's the same table that we saw, right? Now let's go into the next aspect, and that's shadow prices, right? So shadow price is the true or social opportunity cost of a good, resource or input, not its market price. Okay, it's the true or social opportunity cost of a good. I'm not talking about the market price. It reflects the real value to the society, and is used especially in cases where markets fail to reflect all costs and benefits. Markets having externality, basically. Markets which fail to reflect all costs and benefits. Okay. So it's basically that shadow prices are used in cost benefit analysis, in public investment decisions, and in planning and resource allocation. Okay. So it's also important for us to understand when the market price is not equal to social costs. What are the indicators, or when is it not equal? When there are externalities, when markets are distorted or missing. So distorted markets. Number three, prices are controlled or subsidized. Controlled prices or subsidized prices. Public goods are involved. Number five, monopoly or imperfect competition. So a different market. So monopoly or a market like it is imperfect competition. Okay. Foreign exchange distortion. So these are a few reasons why shadow pricing may be used. Okay. Like a real world example would be, say, a road project cuts the transportation costs by 10%. The market price of capital is, say, rupees 100, but due to unemployment and subsidies, the true value to the society is only 60. So 60 is the shadow price of this capital. Okay, the project should be judged using shadow values and not the market price. Okay, so whether a infrastructure project is adding to the net social welfare or not, so that is what has to be considered when it comes to shadow pricing. Okay, so let's take a look at UGC NET PYQ. UGC NET November 2017. I think there's a question. November 2017. Here, November 2017, UGC NET Economics. Market prices adjust to consider differences between social cost benefit and private cost benefit calculations are shadow prices. Okay. Right. Okay. Now let's get into the next part. Pareto assumes ordinal utility, not cardinal. Some incorrect statements assume cardinal utility, which is not Pareto based. Okay. Perfect competition is the only structure fulfilling all the Pareto optimality conditions. Okay. I have already shown you Edgeworth box, production possibility frontier, and how both are combined in order to give us a utility possibility curve or a Pareto frontier, and all the efficient production and consumption points give us the GUPF. Okay. Now, it's also important for us to not only understand what is the GUPF. GUPF, I have already explained, but grand utility possibility frontier along with the social welfare function. Social welfare function gives us social indifference curves. So in the utility of A and B space, I got the grand utility possibility frontier, and I get the social indifference curves according to the SWF that is considered. And the tangency point, this is called SIC1, for example, SIC2, SIC3. The highest social indifference curve achievable according to the different utilities in this economy is given at this, which is UA star and UB star. So grand utility possibility frontier combined with the SWF will give me the socially desirable efficient point. It is combining efficiency along with equity, because remember, the social welfare function can be of different types. So different type of a social welfare function will obviously give you different social indifference curves as well. So a utilitarian SWF or a dictatorship SWF or a Rawlsian SWF, all these will give us different SICs and hence will give us different points of utility of the individuals in the society. Okay. Now, I have also taken out a few potential UGC NET questions on GUPF. What does a point inside the GUPF represent? It is inefficiency, either in the production or exchange or both. What does the slope of GUPF indicate at any point? The marginal rate of utility substitution between individuals given efficient resource allocation. What is the need to move? What is needed to move to a higher utility function? More resources or technological improvement, right? Can multiple SWF isoquants intersect GUPF? Yes, depends on the value judgment. As I said, different SWF will give me different SICs. The highest possible SWF curve tangents to GUPF and social optimal. Okay, so SWF SICs can intersect the GUPF multiple times. These are key terms, short summary. Good time to pause this video and take into account these different summaries and key terms. Right. So now I hope that the efficiency criteria of Pareto optimality, Kaldor-Hicks criterion, Skitowski double criterion, all these aspects are absolutely clear to you. Okay. Next, we will be going into welfare maximization, and we'll talk about that. Okay. So that is the next class that is going into welfare economics. I'll talk about the first fundamental theorem. I'll talk about the social welfare function also in a little more detail. That's about the next part of microeconomics.